Greetings and welcome to today's educational program, the MisEducation of Quality by Dr. Yuan Simmons-Housey. This is your moderator, Shobha Mittal with ASQ Quality Management Division. Today we have the distinct pleasure of hearing from Dr. Yuan Simmons-Housey. Please join me in welcoming her. Dr. Yuan Housey is an executive coach and a master trainer. She is the president and CEO of a company, CYA Consulting Group, Inc. Dr. Housey is also a co-owner of Dental Leadership LLC, which sponsors the Dental Leadership Academy to train dentists and others in the dental profession nationwide. Yuan earned a doctorate from Vanderbilt University. She completed additional coursework at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill as a Society of Research Fellow. She is a Kellogg National Leadership Fellow and an Education Policy Fellow. She is a certified Gallup-Clifton Strengths coach and an American Society for Quality certified manager of quality and organizational excellence. Yuan is a member of ASQ's Leadership Content Committee, an ASQ mentor, and a member of ASQ Austin section. She is the team lead for the ASQ Baldrige Healthcare team. Her most recent contribution to ASQ is the article entitled Focusing on Focus Groups in Spring, 2024 issue of the QMD Forum. Yuan has studied and researched leadership concepts, theories, principles, and techniques all over the world. She has written several blogs and articles on leadership and performance excellence. She is the author of two recently self-published books, A Systems Thinking Model for Improving the Education and Training of Performance Excellence, and its companion handbook, Tools You Can Use. Yuan has worked in corporate, private, and public entities in education, healthcare, and transportation. She has coached and trained more than 2,800 individuals to advance their careers, find more lucrative jobs, and or to start their own companies. And so, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Yuan Housey. Yuan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm so happy that you joined us for this presentation. Thank you, Shobha, for the introduction. I appreciate it. The song you just heard is from Lauryn Hill's MisEducation, the MisEducation of Lauryn Hill, which was an album released in 1998. Somebody has raised their hand. Okay. That album sold 120 million in sales, stayed at the Billboard for 91 weeks for over 21 years. It was declared as the first hip-hop album to win a Grammy Award, and it won 5 awards out of 9 nominations. It's number 10 on the Rolling Stones 500 Greatest Hits of All Time. And then on May 22nd, 2024, Apple Music declared it the greatest album of all time. So over 25 years later, we have this outstanding piece of musical work. Now, why did I tell you that story? I told you that story because the reason that the title of my presentation is The MisEducation of Quality is based on Lauryn Hill's album, or at least her theme. And the way that came about was my daughter, as I was grousing about someone that I had talked with, I was saying things like, oh, they don't really understand quality. They don't know what they're talking about. That's not about quality, you know. And so my daughter says, and so I said, they're so miseducated. And my daughter said, oh, like the MisEducation of Lauryn Hill? And I said, what you talking about, Willis? So she told me about this album. And I researched it and really liked what it has to say. So you just heard a clip from that album, and I highly encourage. I'm not trying to make her have more sales, but it's a really good album to have in your possession. I'm going to be talking this evening about these learning objectives, and I hope I don't miss the mark. I've struggled a little bit with it. I have great ideas, and then sometimes trying to bring them to fruition gives me a little bit of trouble, and then I have to switch out and do a little bit more creative thinking. Either way, you've got these learning objectives. Understand what is meant by miseducation, its historical origin, and why re-education is necessary. align the miseducation concepts with the ASQ body of knowledge, better known as the QBOC, which we'll be talking about a little bit. Discuss the 5 C's for re-education and embrace a call to action that fosters a workplace where talent can thrive, and then laugh out loud and have fun. I believe in laughter, and I don't show up any place that I can't have a good time. So here's the deal. Even if you don't laugh, if it's funny to me, I'll laugh. It's okay. All right, so my communication flow looks like this. First, we'll talk about definitions and distinctions so that we have a shared understanding. We will discuss the problems, both from a science-based standpoint as well as from my personal and professional observations. Also, share some solutions, some simple tools that you can actually apply. And then I always do a call to action at the end in terms of what you can and need to do. Okay, so let's start with definitions and distinctions. First of all, what is quality? And this comes directly from the ASQ QBOC from 2015. Quality is the entry point to higher levels of performance and innovation. Quality begins with the pursuit of personal excellence. Now, I want to draw attention to this item number 2 because that's going to be the focus of the entire presentation. We're taught this evening, personal excellence is where it actually begins, but we'll talk more about that. The sum of all information in terms of the QBOC is where you go to find out about the various books, the tutorials, the webinars, the presentations, all that relate and fulfill the mission of ASQ. And also, you know, ASQ is a voluntary membership professional development organization, so the QBOC lays all of that out. And the intent is to consistently meet the changing needs of its members. All right, so here's my definition of quality. Cost down for day-to-day operations. So you'd be looking at things like inventory and stock, energy conservation. You know, people leave the lights on in the building, that sends the cost up. So we want to have costs down in those areas that we can save some money so that we can do what? Invest in people. So you reallocate. If you can keep your costs down for day-to-day operations, you can have your costs up for human potential. So you're looking at things like professional development and training. Because a lot of times in organizations, people say, well, we don't have any money to do training, or we don't have any money to pay you more money, or we don't have money to do merits, or we don't have money to pay bonuses. But you got to still think about, you know, is there a way to save some money out of some of these things that are costing us big bucks so that we can reallocate some of those dollars over to the people that we work with. So I will invest my money in people is a statement from W.K. Kellogg, and I'm a Kellogg Fellow. So this is what we have used in the last 25, 30 years that I've been a fellow, and focusing on people. All right, so here's the ASQ body of knowledge, and this is why I want to talk about the miseducation. Because we often don't even think about the fact that that first stage in the QBOC for the quality journey is really the pursuit of personal excellence. That begins with your personal knowledge, your skills, your abilities. Instead, what we typically do is talk about these 3 stages, mostly pursuit of operational excellence, where we're actually looking at the tools that we can apply, flow charts, Pareto charts, control charts, the 8 different types of waste, whatever. Then we have the pursuit of organizational excellence, where we're looking at things like mission, vision, strategies, planning, and then we look at the pursuit of the quality ideal. But it all starts here, pursuit of personal excellence. So first, that's the first order of business. So what is education? Education is a process, and we're very clear on that word. We use it a lot in our work, that leads to acquiring new insights and knowledge. Education is a process intended to correct ineffective actions and behaviors. Education is the process that leads to better decision making and innovation. All right, so what is miseducation? If that's education, what is miseducation? Miseducation is also a process. And it's looking at information that has not been taught completely, or a process that hinders us from learning or our ability to think critically. It's a process that tends to lead to preconceived notions and misconceptions and misunderstandings, and ultimately cause conflict, particularly in the workplace. I want to point out that the source for this is AI, and ChatGPT. So I'm up to date. You know, people are talking about, oh, well, you know, all this stuff is going on. I just want to point that out. That's my only source, but I wanted to bring attention to it. All right. So, Miseducation for Lauryn Hill. What were her messages? Respect and love yourself. Don't be a hard rock when you truly are a gem. How can you win when you are not right within? You have the right to be yourself. So the bottom line here is we are often miseducated on who we should be and what we should expect from others. We need to stop hiding our talents and soar with our strengths. Okay, so an example of that would be when you walk into a doctor's office, the first thing you're going to see in a big frame is their diploma that says what? Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. When they walk into your office, what do you see? Do you have your diploma on the wall? Do you have your credentials? Do you have your certifications from ASQ framed and on the wall? We sometimes hide those things. We put them in a drawer, put them on a shelf, put them in a file cabinet, whatever. And we need to stop hiding our talents, and we need to soar with those things that we are really good at, because we're good at a lot of things, but we don't let people know it. All right, so Lauryn Hill's message translates to the world of quality very simply. We need to up our game so that those we work with know who we are. That's first. So yes, you have your green belt, your black belt, your credential from ASQ, your certifications, you've done all this training. We need to let people know what our talents, our knowledge, and our expertise is that we have, and we somehow need to let people know how we can help individuals and organizations on both a personal and a professional level. In other words, we need to self-assess. That's where it starts. Looking internally at yourself and saying, what do I look like? Who am I? What do I provide? What can I provide? What else do I need in my repertoire of skills? So the self-assessment becomes very important. Now, right here, I was supposed to, oh, you heard it just a little bit. It was supposed to play a school bell, which is the introductory song on the Lauryn Hill's album. And anybody that knows that song knows that the teacher is doing a roll call. So the whole idea would have been, we're going to school right now, so we're going to discuss these problems. And they're going to be science-based as well as my personal and professional observations. And I hate that my music is not playing, but we'll make it. Okay, so there are 4 current workplace issues. There are problems out there that we have to talk about before we talk about solutions. Incivility, okay, being disrespectful towards others, gossiping, arguing, insulting, spreading rumors. High levels of burnout, an overwhelming amount of chronic stress. And chronic stress means it's ongoing. It's not like acute stress where you have an incident, you're stressed about that incident, and then you're no longer stressed about the incident because things got resolved. Chronic stress is this ongoing condition. Ineffective communication, withholding information or not conveying information clearly so that it is understood. And then lack of engagement or cultural understanding. I talked about this in my talk back in September of 2023. If you missed that talk, you should go back and look at what I provided as related to culture and engagement. But basically, here it's still a big deal because people don't know how their jobs align with the mission and vision and purpose of the organization that they work for. And so a lot of times they're not included in the decision making. So that's basically what that's referring to. So these are your four most popular, most researched, most presented. Every piece of literature that you're picking up, you're going to see one or more of these workplace issues. There's this whole emphasis on incivility and specifically workplace violence. All right, so what does the data tell us? Okay, so most common expressions of incivility in the workplace. There was a study done that was reported in the Society of Human Resource Management, and there were 1,600 workers who participated in the study. Addressing others disrespectfully came in at 36%. Silencing others while they are speaking is 34%. And this one I've actually been party to within the last 2.5 weeks. I was trying to explain something to someone who became very offensive, and every time I would try and say something, he would interrupt. I finally had to just politely say to him, I've listened to everything you have to say. Now it's my turn. And sometimes that's all it takes. But we do have people who try and shut other people down, don't want to hear anybody's side, they don't want to hear anybody's voice but their own. And then excessive monitoring or micromanaging. You know, this was big many years ago and it's starting to come back. I wasn't able to uncover what the possible reasons are for that. But we have this excessive monitoring or micromanaging. There was a whole body of literature many years ago about leading by intimidation and fear. And we had moved away from that. And then now you got 32% of at least of these workers who are saying they're seeing this as an excess. 59% said incivility causes a decline in employee morale. And that's easy to understand. All right, so where else is incivility coming from? At one time, right here, while driving or as a passenger in a private vehicle, recall they used to say there was a lot of road rage, okay? Lots of road rage. And that seemed to be the biggest uncivil act. But now look at this. In a store or while shopping, you got 53% online or on social media. At a restaurant, the bar, maybe. On the news, at a park in my neighborhood. And then we've seen a lot of this more recently on public transportation, particularly in the air. I don't know why anybody want to be discourteous or start something up in the air. If I was going to have some type of conflict, I'd wait until that plane lands. I would not be carrying on up in the air. But okay, not a lot of people do that, but you do see that as one of the things that we're starting to see more of. Okay, number 2 problem, burnout, is defined by the World Health Organization as a syndrome, and they defined that in 2019, and it had these dimensions: exhaustion, no energy, a loss of enthusiasm for work, feeling ineffective, can't muster the fortitude to be productive, and the number 1 cause being overwhelming amount of chronic stress. All right, then the root causes of burnout: unfair treatment at work. I don't expect anybody on this call to be treated poorly at work. Shame on you. Unmanageable workload, unclear communication. I don't care what organization I have worked for or with, communication becomes a very critical indicator of whether things are going well or not going well. And it typically, in every situation, it's not going well. But yet, you know, you drill down on that. I've drilled down through focus groups on that. And what I found was, if it wasn't highlighted in yellow or underlined in red, for example, written items that are shared, except for text messages, of course, then people weren't reading it anyway. So it was always this back and forth. They don't tell me anything. They don't keep me in the loop. Nothing's transparent. Or they send me too much information. I don't need to know all that, you know. So it's always been kind of thorn in people's side, this whole communication piece. Lack of managerial support, and then unreasonable time pressure. The 7 most common signs of burnout are forgetfulness, and this is from the Employee Burnout Causes and Cures from Gallup's report in 2023. Frequent illness, sleeplessness, depression, lack of interest, feeling of apathy, irritability. You're seeing more of that, like we talked about earlier, about incivility, lack of production, even though you are working hard. Deming says it's not enough to work hard. You must know what to work on. So if you're not clear, because you don't have clear goals, or because your supervisor, changes their mind every few minutes about what it is that you should be working on, and I'm, being facetious, but then yes, you're not going to be quite as productive as you possibly could be, and ultimately you're going to be frustrated and aggravated, potentially angry, and then ultimately burned out. Okay. People who are burned out, again, this is from the Gallup report, 63% are more likely to take a sick day. And I'm not talking about the blue fluke, because people will say, I need to be off today. I'm just going to have the flu. I'm talking about people who actually can't physically make it into work. 23% more likely to visit the emergency room, 13% less confident in their performance, and then 2.6 times as likely to be actively seeking a different job. Okay, so I was talking to a young woman that I coached today, and I told her I had this presentation tonight, and I wanted to share this information with her because what she was explaining to me indicated that she was about to crash and burn. So we talked about it, and this is exactly what she said. As soon as she got off the phone call, she was going to start seeking a different job. So we've got people who are on that ledge. We've got people on the edge. The question is, are you one of them? And the only way you can really get a feel for that is if you self-assess. So, ineffective communication, information is not shared regularly. And, I call that hoarding. That's why I put that there. If you're keeping information from people that they need to know, because you're thinking, you don't need to know it, so I only need to know it, because I've got it like that, then you are hoarding information. And I would say, that's not a cool thing to do. Information is not meaningful. We get a lot of information, a lot of stuff that has no merit. Information that's not factual, oh boy, that's a whole different presentation. And then information is unclear. We've already talked a little bit about that. Okay, so lack of engagement or cultural understanding is problem number 4. Left out of decision making. Don't understand the rules of engagement or how the organization works. Your culture is how your organization shows up. What is it they're expecting you to do? Do you have ongoing meetings? Do you have recognition and appreciation days? Do you have quality days or equality week? How your organization works is what culture is about. And people a lot of times don't understand those rules, and they feel like they're odd man out or odd woman out. No role, connection with the company, vision, mission, or goals. And sometimes that's because the vision, mission, and goals are not clear. But I didn't say that. Oh. All right. So what is engagement? Employees are involved in, excited about, and committed to their work and their workplace. And if you're not excited about, you're not committed to the work, you're not involved, then yes, you're going to be looking at things like being uncivil. You're going to be looking at things like being burned out. And you're going to be looking at things about, well, I'm not going to tell because nobody needs to know but me. So, what does the engaged culture look like? I don't know, but I shared in the fall of 2023, I shared the 2023 Gallup Global Workplace Report. And at that time, it was cited that the highest engagement rate or highest engagement percentage was 23%. okay? And that was from taking this survey, which is not a Mickey Mouse survey. So, you know, I love Mickey Mouse, but it was 120,000 people involved in the survey. So it's not like a small scale survey, right? Okay, so from 2009 until 2022, the highest rate of engagement, it's only been 23%. So they did the next round, which is the one I'm reporting today for 2024, and we're still there. So I don't know if that's good or bad. We didn't go up, but we didn't go down. So I guess if we kind of stabilized, we were in the right track. But anyway, so this is information that may be useful to you in understanding how people are feeling as though they're not engaged in their culture, they're not engaged in their organization. All right. So here's the part that I know you've been waiting for, talking about sharing solutions to some of these problems as it relates to your personal excellence. Okay, here we go. Simple tools and their application. Now, a lot of these tools, I have created a download for you, and it's free, but you have to go into my website to get it. So I'll tell you which ones. I hope I remember as we go through. All right, so we talked about self-assessment. All right, so you've got to legitimize the assessment for yourself. So one of the tools that's available to you, one of the self-assessments, is the Myers-Briggs. Now, I don't know if anybody on this call, I'm pretty sure a lot of people on this call have had the Myers-Briggs either recently or sometime previously. Anyway, the Myers-Briggs is very well-known tool, assessment tool. It's based on Young's 16 personality types. It's a personality test, okay? And there are 4 pairs of opposing descriptors. There's extroversion versus introversion, sensing versus intuition, feeling or thinking, judging or perceiving. I see people are putting what their acronyms are. I'm an INTJ from 20 years ago. But here's the deal. People will have the same results as others, okay? As opposed to the Gallup StrengthsFinder assessment, which is based on rigorous research. These are the Gallup poll people. They research everything. 34 themes and 4 domains. So you've got executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking, and they're color-coded. Okay, so this assessment identifies your top 5 talents. There are 34 that could be provided to you depending on how much money you want to pay to take the assessment. But I always try and encourage people to at least take the $20 version, which will give you, or maybe they've gone up a little bit, the version that gives you your 5 top talents. And then the idea behind Gallup is that your talents become strengths when you apply them. Okay, but here's the difference. One big difference between the Gallup and the Myers-Briggs is 1 out of 33 million people would have the same talents in the same exact order. In other words, there are no carbon copy people. So that's one of the big differences. All right. Okay, then you can take a 2-minute burnout checkup. All right, this is a very simple one. The one that I have in the download is a little bit meatier, so to speak, and it actually gives you a score and a rating scale. So you might be interested in that. This one, I'll just kind of walk you through real quickly. And let's say Chris Bailey, who wrote this, and this was published in his article in HBR, Harvard Business Review, back in 2023, where 0 is negligible stress and 10 is equal to extreme stress. So the total scores, is 60 points that you can get, well, out of 60 points, and then whatever your score is. Okay, so the amount of work on your plate is your workload, your values, your rewards, your control, fairness, community. All right, so his thinking, the way he explains it in the article is, don't consider how much your total scores are as much as how much your individual scores are. So, for example, under reward, recognition for contributions. If you've got a 9 because you feel as though you're not being recognized and you're pumping it hard as you can and you're doing everything for everybody and you're stressing yourself out, and you give yourself a 9 there, as opposed to connecting with your work on a deep level and values, you might only give that a 4. So the way he explains it is you want to look at those scores that are high, individual scores that are high, and then think about what do I need to do to address this stress within my life. So that 2-minute burnout checkup is a very useful tool. Go to his article and it's sitting right there for you. Okay, so I came up with these 5 C's for re-education. Now, years ago, Lee Iacocca from GM Corporation, I believe it was, came up with 9 C's. But I have the mic, so I came up with 5, but my statisticians out there probably say something like, that's not 5, that's 7, because I repeated the word communicate 2 more times. Okay, but like I said, I have the mic, so I'm calling it 5. Be curious, be creative, be courageous, be civil, and communicate. All right. So what is curiosity? Curiosity for me means the nose knows. It's a compass. It sets the right direction for you. It helps you consider different paths that you can go down, searching for answers, looking for not just clues, but an outcome. It helps you persevere to get the answer to questions that other people might be a little bit hesitant about asking, which are, I call, heretical questions. Okay, so if you're in a team meeting, for example, or in a staff meeting, and something comes to mind, and if you say it out loud, you're probably going to get yourself in the hot seat. So rather than say it out loud, you want to flip it to a question so that you can, get out of the issue goes in the hot seat and you get out of the hot seat, or you don't go into the hot seat. So people say, well, what is a heretical question? A heretical question is that non-traditional, out-of-the-box question that is based on an opinion that is not the going opinion. And that's how you end up in the hot seat, because everybody in the room is like, Gary, what you talking about? Okay, so you want to make sure that in your curiosity that you use heretical questions and seek answers to those. Okay, because you can make better decisions that way. And then you want to persevere to the end. So curiosity, I call it my compass, and I often go off on these little curious excursions in my mind and on paper and, talking to other people and friends. All right, creativity. Now, I love this. Don't put a no in innovation. Okay. You remember that AT&T commercial? It said, we put the no in innovation. Don't put a no in innovation. Okay, you want to sell your ideas. You want to think both inside and outside the box. You want to be creative and use creative thinking as well as critical thinking. You want to combine that data with ideas. Okay, so the whole idea is, I think I might have told the story previously somewhere at an ASQ event, but I had like 28 engineers one time that I was working with, and I made this comment: think both outside. Don't just think outside, I think I said, think inside, but make the space bigger. And I just said it and, kept going in my whatever talk I was having. And the next morning, because it was like a day and a half class, the next morning, a group came back in and said, we figured it out. And I said, you figured what out? And they said, we figured out how to make the box bigger, how to make the space bigger. I said, oh, well, what did you come up with? And they said, we're going to make it out of rubber. I said, oh, okay. And so then I looked at them and I said, okay, well, why couldn't you just take something out of the box to make the space bigger? And one guy said, House, if that was going to be the answer, you should have just told us that, And so I learned a lot that day. Never ask an engineer to solve a problem. That's what they taught me. Okay? Because they will do it. They will actually do it. Oh boy. All right. So I love them. All right. So this comes from Sproul and Provost out of Quality Progress. So it's one of our own set of gurus that are out there. We've been talking about creativity since 1996. So we need to get on board. All right. Where do ideas come from? Error. Okay. So that's consistent with what we know to be one of the 8 types of ways, such as defects. Okay, so if you have an error, it creates a path that leads you out of your comfortable assumptions. Being right keeps you in place. Being wrong forces you to explore. And so, I mean, ideas come from other places. Serendipity. I mean, there's different places they come from. But error is one of those, and that's aligned with what our thinking is in terms of how do we address an error. We got to think creatively, not just critically all the time. All right, so here's an exercise for you. I know you've been waiting on getting busy and working with me on this little exercise. All right, so this is called the paperclip exercise. And I want you, since you have these 6 beautiful paper clips in front of you, I want you to jot down how many uses you can come up with for this paper clip. Okay, how many can you list? And I'm going to give you a minute to do it. And then when I say go, I want you to just jot it down. I know everybody's got a pen and paper, and I didn't tell you to bring it, but I know you got it. So y'all are rolling like that. All right, so ready, set, go. How many uses for that paper clip can you come up with? Okay, stop. Okay, so in every time I've done this exercise, the highest I've ever gotten received from anybody was 17. How many people ended up with 17 or more? Okay. So the person that in the past came up with the 17 was my deceased husband, who was a policeman. All right, and of course his first thing to use a paper clip for was to handcuff somebody. And I'm sure that's not something that made anybody's list. But here's the deal. How many ideas did you list? This is the exercise. Why isn't your list longer? So this is forcing you to think creatively, but it's also forcing you to think beyond just there were 6 paper clips. They're all turned in the same direction. They're color coded, because that's how we usually see things. We see them in this critical thinking situation, or in this data collection mentality. But sometimes we need to match those ideas with our critical thinking, and have creative thinking as well. So critical thinking is important. But sometimes we need to be outside of that. So what was your strategy for generating your ideas, and what were your ideas innovative? And then what was your greatest barrier? Whenever I do this exercise on site, the greatest barrier usually is time. If you had given me more time, I would have come up with more things. Okay, well, fine. Okay, so the paperclip exercise was just a fun thing for us to do to get you to start thinking about, yes, there's a lot of creative ideas that I can have. Okay. Okay. All right, your next one is courage, persistence, fortitude, and gratitude. Gratitude is an attitude. Okay, it is an attitude. I love that. Be your own champion. Embrace competition with the best. Why do we want to compete with somebody that's not at the best, at the top of the chain? That's what we want to do. We set our standards high, and then we expect other people to set their sky. In fact, in one agency that I worked in, we had this saying, we have upped our standards, up yours. And now, of course, that's a double entendre. But we have to learn how, it takes courage to laugh out loud. We get into meetings and we're solemn and, we're, not thinking about anything except something that's painful. We might have a little positivity in our spirit, but we squelch it. But when somebody says something funny, like my high school teacher, he was never funny. Everybody laughed. I never did. But over the years, I've learned to laugh out loud a lot. And I encourage you to do that because it takes a lot of courage to do it, but it also makes you feel good. All right, civility. Have difficult conversations without hostility. Find common ground. Disagree better. All right. So I had this friend who was a locomotive, or I think he's retired now, but he's a locomotive engineer. And he and I would have these, intellectual battles, I guess. And he finally came up with this statement. He says, "How's you're only 51% right." I mean, it stopped me dead in my tracks, no pun intended. But, how close is that to wrong? But anyway, we were always civil with each other, and we were never hostile to each other, and we learned how to just disagree better. And he used that phrase, and that always shut the conversation down or the disagreement down. So try it. All right. Also, communicate well and often. Connect with people, nonverbal and verbal. Listen actively. I don't have to tell you this. You know all this stuff. Point out the unique contributions of individuals. Mean what you say and say what you mean. And just charge people's batteries. They just need a little bit of nudging. Even eagles need a nudge. All right. So this is what I do for myself. I fist bump myself. I high five myself. I pat myself on my back because sometimes it's just not coming. And then I say this, "Oh, girl, giddy up." So that's my motivational poster for myself. And then ways to increase communication. Take a quick pulse survey. It's like, what did you like? What did you dislike? How do we improve it? And then these 3 words. Use could, because, and together. Okay? And you're using could instead of should. And you're using because to tell why. We don't often tell or explain to people why they need to do something to join us in an endeavor. Is together. And then capture the essence of conversations that are going around you, because those are pearls that you can use, and pearls of wisdom often, that you can use in terms of your own personal excellence and your own personal experiences to share with other people. And then, of course, convene focus groups, because I'm big on focus groups. I like surveys, but I'm big on focus groups, and I've written that article for ASQ that you can find in the library. And then finally, the last section of the communication flow is the call to action, what you can and need to do. All right, so a friend of mine gave me this picture, or a coworker, in 2009. That's how old this is. And if you don't feel like this when you're going into work every day, God, I love this place, you need to reassess. Is that where you need to be? Is this where you want to end your career, at this one job where you're not loving it? And the reason she gave it to me is contrary to what this says. We had an IT guy that worked for us, and he was awful. I mean, he was truly awful. And so whenever he would walk into your office, people would fall over their computers like this and say, "Don't touch my computer." But I probably shouldn't have told that story, but it's a true story. God, I love this place. That's what you want to take with you every day. That you really enjoy your work and that you're making a significant contribution. So what are you worth to you? There will always be people who hate what you do. There will always be people who love what you do. But what is your opinion of yourself? Okay, I know there was an eye roll, so I'm going to give it to you. I heard you loudly and clearly. I know that eye roll happened. Okay, 4 questions, self-assessment. Ask yourself, what is my plan? Where am I stuck? What is hindering me from moving forward? What can I reasonably and feasibly do? And then this is a document I created back in 1998. That's just telling my age, I guess. And I call it the 8 steps to backward planning or backward chaining. First is, what outcomes are you seeking? What do you want to do? I coached a gentleman this morning, and he says, I want to be a sole proprietor. Okay, but he's a big vice president in a university setting, but he's often wanted to have his own company. So we walked through that. What measures will you use to reach those outcomes? What's been done? What are you already that you're doing now? What's left for you to do? Okay, you just writing down all of these things because you're assessing where you are. Allies and opponents. Who is responsible? That's going to be you. What dollars do you need? And what is going to be your status and your time frame to check up on yourself? And I always tell people at least 3 months, no more, every 3 months you want to check in to see how you're working towards your outcomes. All right. And then just because to keep you accountable, I have this 2-month commitment, and what you want to do is write down over the next 2 months. I will, based on this talk this evening now, I'm not talking about that you're planning to go on vacation or whatever. I'm talking about what has been imparted this evening. What will you do? And then you sign it, and then you find an accountability partner who also signs it, and both of you date it. And that kind of holds you to your commitment that you want to do for yourself and improve your own personal excellence. So here's the deal. Is the hokey pokey really all it's about? No! I had this grandson, Andrew, which is the A in my CYA company, because it's named after my grandsons and my name. Christopher, Yvonne, Andrew, just so you know. And he would always, whenever you ask Andrew to do something, whether it was take out the trash or put up the shoes or whatever it was, he would say, no! So is the hokey pokey really all it's about? No, it's not. The answer is within you. And you can define your own destiny. So here's what you do. You want to make a quality impact and turn yourself around. You're already making good decisions. If you're not, you need to work on that. You're sharing your thoughts. If you're not, you need to work on that. If you're engaging others, but you're not doing it as well as you know you could, you need to work on that. So you may have your credentials, and I'm sure you do, because that's what ASQ is about. It's helping you get those certifications, helping you get increase your knowledge, helping you get the badge. But it starts with your personal assessment of yourself. So make that quality impact, because I know you can. You're creative, you have a curious mind, you're civil, you're courageous in your decision making, and you communicate well. So just turn yourself around. Look in yourself, turn yourself around. Okay. All right, so the learning objectives. Understand what is meant by miseducation, its historical origin, and why education is necessary. Went over that, explained the difference between education and miseducation, and then gave you the 5 C's, which is also down here, to talk about re-educating. Align the miseducation concepts with the ASQ body of knowledge and the QBOC. Again, it starts with personal excellence, and then it builds to the next stage, which is operational excellence. It builds to the next stage, which is organizational excellence, and then it builds to the pursuit of the ideal in quality. Right? And then there's a call to action piece, of course, that we talked about, that you can use to foster the workplace. And then laugh out loud and have a good time. So I hope there was something that was a little bit entertaining for you, but also gave you some new insights and some ideas about what else is possible for you. And okay, so this is my second to last slide, I think. Anyway, I encourage you to take a look at my books, Systems Thinking Model for Education and Training of Performance Excellence, and it's from a leadership standpoint. It's a pedagogical approach, which means that it's teaching you about things. And then there's the tools that serves as a companion handbook that goes with that initial book. Okay, and then here's how you reach me. I am an ASQ mentor. I only have one slot available right now, but starting in September, I'll probably have 4. So I can sign up. If you're interested, you go through the ASQ website and, request me as a mentor. And we can get together and decide whether that's going to be a good fit for you. But here's the bottom line. Don't be a hard rock when you truly are a gem. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. That was a wonderful presentation. We'll take some questions now, and we'll stop at this slide while you can take down the contact information if you want. So I have this question for you, Yvonne. So the question is, someone here used to work for any UTC division. How you like ASE philosophy and its golden nugget principle?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what the first part of the question was.
So it was a question to the group. Someone here used to work for any UTC division.
What's in the division? What's the name of the division?
UTC. I do not know what that means.
I'm not sure either.
Okay, let's move on to the next question if this is not clear. An organizational leader's role is critical for enhancing quality culture. How we can convince them to mitigate impact of miseducation of quality at leadership level, so to enhance collectivist quality culture for continued employees' motivation and sustained business results.
Shoba, I'm missing, I don't know whether you're not coming in clear or whether I am, I don't know, I didn't understand the question.
Okay, let me share my screen. Will that help?
Okay, that might be helpful.
Okay, so let me just do that. Give me a second here so I can, because I do, okay. I have some comments here. Okay, I think, give me a second. I'm just trying to organize my stuff here.
Okay.
All right, so let me go back to my webinar and share the slides right here. Screen, share it. Okay. Do you see this? So the first question was, someone here used to work for a UTC, any UTC division. How you like ACE philosophy and its golden nugget principle?
I'm not sure what that is. I need a lot more information. Okay. Is that United Transportation? I don't know what UTC stands for.
An organizational leader's role is critical for enhancing quality culture. How we can convince them to mitigate impact of miseducation of quality at leadership level, so to enhance collectivist quality culture for continued employee motivation and sustained business results.
Okay, well, my definition of leadership is getting good things done with the help of others. So right off the bat, there has to be a philosophy and a commitment to making sure that everybody is, part of that team, part of that culture, part of that spirit, and they all want to seek improvement. But leadership is very difficult for a lot of people in the sense that they don't understand that leadership actually is situational. So everybody in an organization can be a leader. Somebody is a leader to somebody. So to try and get the top senior executives to be leaders and not bring along other people within the culture, then it's not going to materialize like it would. So things that you could do are I encourage, if you're not having weekly meetings with your individual direct reports, that you can do that so that you can keep them updated and they can keep you updated. Staff meetings are always very important, but you got to have an agenda and you got to have proper notification, and you got to be able to use some tools that can actually make people feel a part of the meeting. So Disney uses like an idea map where you're generating ideas all the time, or reflective practice where you're identifying, answering questions that they may have. So there's different types of tools that are out there that will help build the culture in a certain way where leaders and senior executives can feel more comfortable about the sustainability of their organizations. So that's what I would.
All right, then we have one more question. When you notice someone is burnt out, how can you nudge them into making a change?
Okay, so it's very difficult to stand on the sidelines and watch someone be burned out. I would say the first thing I would do and have done is provide them with an article that they can read about. Some people don't really realize that they are burned out. Some people think burnout is someone else. Burned out is someone else. So having them read an article or giving them some information about what burnout really is. Also having that one-on-one conversation and talking about how they could be of help to the person, and just say, I notice, that you're out a lot of days. I notice that you're not feeling well a lot of times. I notice that you're angry, whatever the case might be. I notice these things. Are you in a good enough space where we can talk about it? Instead of whispering in the lane, that's what incivil, being uncivil is. Sometimes we notice people, we recognize that, and then we go talk about somebody else or talk with somebody else instead of talking directly to the person. So I find that it's just better to be upfront, express your concern, share a document of some kind with them and some data, and let them know that you're in their corner and are willing to be a source of support.
Thank you.
Okay.
The next one is, could you provide an example of how and when you posed a heretical question?
Yeah, I'm usually the person that's in the hot seat. So I've had to learn about using heretical questions. So for example, one might be, one time I said, well, I don't think we should do that because that's not going to be a good idea. I switched that over the years to, how are we going to do that? And like one of the things that has come up in my past is a cost to customers. So I would say a heretical question would be, can we charge less than what the customer is paying now? Because that's out of the box thinking. We don't usually think of that. We always think, let's charge them more. So heretical questions, holding your opinion when it's at odds with everybody else's. Yes, if you can go against the grain and get away with that, that's fine. But I find that most people, when they do that, the other people in the room think they're pretty crazy. So you want to change it into a question, not just make a statement. I wrote a blog, by the way, about heretical questions, and you can find that on my website also.
Next question is, why is there so much emphasis on personal excellence as a leadership team?
Because it's the foundation of quality. That's all I got for you. It is your foundation. If you don't have the personal excellence piece in play for yourself, you're going to burn out. You got to look at yourself and see, am I doing it in a way that is going to cause me, not going to cause me heartburn? Is it going to propel me to that next level of success? Have I looked at myself enough to know what I can and cannot do and not be a perpetrator? So you can have your PMP, you can have your BCC, you can have your PCC, you can have your ABC, you can have MOUSE. And all of those are great. But the ultimate thing is, what